Ron Mark.
I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to take a short call. I understand my colleague Mahesh Bindra, who sat on the Law and Order Select Committee through these hearings, has already spoken. But I guess I need to put on the record, as the police spokesman for New Zealand First, that we opposed this bill when it was introduced. We have sat through the hearings, heard the evidence and heard the explanations, but remain opposed to this legislation, and we will not be voting in support of it. I guess for New Zealand First, we see this as the thin edge of a wedge. We are well used to the introduction of user pays philosophies and principles. They are the hallmarks of Rogernomics and euthanasia, economic policies that brought along with them user charges. We see this as an extension, a continuance of that. I guess the thing that worries us when we look at the definition of what makes a fee chargeable is that it introduces an element of grey. It introduces the issues of ambiguity and of interpretation. And on that basis, it's better simply not to have the definition at all. Actually, if we just said specifically, this is the one thing that would be charged for, end of story, no discussion, no nothing else, it might well be worthy of further consideration or reconsideration. But the fact that you have a definition which is itself right now open to debate and open to discussion means it's ambiguous and means that it can be stretched. And who knows what a police administration might decide to stretch that into beyond here, because, of course, it doesn't come back to the Parliament to be redebated. It just requires an order in council. And so we can say $8.50 today, but that does not mean it won't be $10 in a year's time, $15, $20, and hello, Bob's your uncle. Before you know it, it's $50 a shot. And the question is, if boards of trustees are required to have police vetting done on all applicants, then the next question is, if this cost is so huge and we're going to compensate the police by charging the applicants, then what provision has been made in the budget to up the Ministry of Education's budget by the commensurate amount for every individual applicant for a job in education that might require vetting? Are the boards of trustees going to be compensated for that? We've seen nothing of that. So therefore, it lends more weight to the suspicion that this is really about user charges. And here's the bottom line. If it's only $500,000, well, bearing in mind that we blew $30 million on a flag change referendum that nobody wanted, $500,000, although the quote was just given was $500,000 per annum. Vetting requests. Okay, so what is the total cost, Minister? Because we would say New Zealand First philosophy would be this: give the money to the police in their budget. Allow them to go on doing the work they do in crime prevention, law and order and enforcement, and give them the appropriate resources to do that. Don't levy the cost back out onto the taxpayer who's already paid the taxes to provide for that one thing that is the government's first duty, that is policing and keeping our people safe. The government's first duty is the safety of its citizens. The government's first duty is the protection of its citizens. That means allocating adequate funding, adequate resources to the police that they may do that work that the taxpayers are paying for. To flip it back out again and say, oh, you're going to have to pay for this again. Well, that just doesn't seem right to us. So we will oppose this legislation, Mr. Speaker. The ambiguity, the greyness, the fact that it smacks very much of an extension into user pays that we do not agree with, tells us that the legislation actually is fraught with problems and should not be proceeding beyond this stage.